This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Flashback Reviews, where I take movies from the past, break them down, and tell you what I think about them. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button. Join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next, and comment below on any videos you watch on this channel, including this one. So Total Recall, as we all know, is a well-regarded, well-respected action film, sci-fi action film from Paul Verhoeven that stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. The crazy thing is it's 30 years old this week. I don't even know where to begin with that, because this movie is such a classic in the sci-fi sense that is now basically considered a modern classic. I mean, it's considered old now. I mean, it's just really crazy to think, because it's a movie that actually took Arnold Schwarzenegger's limited ability to act and actually made us believe in his actorial abilities. It made us believe that this guy, who was very intimidating in his stature, could play vulnerable, could play unique, could play different. And it doesn't mean that they don't like tone up his action abilities with the violence and stuff like that, because this movie's super violent. But it's just interesting to see a guy who's known for doing stuff like Predator, which is a very machismo movie, for doing stuff like Raw Deal, Commando, and so on and so forth, Terminator, to give some like levity to a character is really fascinating. And that really helps with a person like Paul Verhoeven, who actually does a nice job with actors. Look at RoboCop and look how good, Peter Weller was as Murphy, and how his emotions and everything that was taken away from him, how kind of emotive it was and how unique it was. And the same thing with kind of like Basic Instinct with Sharon Stone's character. But I think, honestly, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger's best film. I think it's Paul Verhoeven's best film, and I really love Starship Troopers. It's a film that is very visceral, but is also very unique in the fact that it's trying to tell you something, it's trying to give you different perspectives, and actually is a thinking man's sci-fi action movie, which is pretty crazy. I mean, if you really think about it, because it's Philip K. Dick, it's not really that surprising, but in the essence of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Paul Verhoeven, it really does make you think about the idea of what is true and what is not. And I enjoy that. I like that. I think it's fascinating. This movie was a huge hit. It made $267 million worldwide, but it has a very interesting back history. This was originally as a production with Dino De Laurentiis, who's a very famous producer. This was going to have, of course, Richard Dreyfuss, and was originally written by Dan O'Bannon and John Favreau, who, if you don't know, Dan O'Bannon is well known for doing Alien, and Alien is, of course, a very famous sci-fi horror movie. And this has that sci-fi element that you kind of see something that Dan O'Bannon is known for doing. But because of everything that happened, because of, starts and stops, this movie was originally going to be directed by David Cronenberg. And David Cronenberg is very similar to like David Lynch or Darren Aronofsky, where if they don't like doing a project that they have no control over, if they feel like they're being mistreated, they're going to jump off the project. Like literally, they will leave the project, because look at stuff like Batman. Darren Aronofsky was supposed to do Batman and, of course, Wolverine. But, of course, that didn't happen. But this movie got put into development hell, which is, if you don't know, is a way of explaining about a movie that literally sits around and does nothing, doesn't get any type of production for years on end. It's what is called turnaround. And it's a very interesting thing to watch, because there are a lot of famous movies and directors and projects that got a lot of development hell. I mean, New Mutants is in development hell literally right now, but this movie really got off the ground when Arnold Schwarzenegger, basically after Raw Deal, kind of really got interested in the project. He wanted to bring Joel Silver in to do this movie, and he had worked with him on Predator. And of course, Joel Silver is probably busy. I mean, he probably just didn't have the time. Probably was committed to another project, so it just didn't work out. So Paul Verhoeven was brought in because Arnold Schwarzenegger really liked what he did with RoboCop, the ultra violence, the actually ideas, and logical thinking about that movie in general. And they actually brought in Gary Goldman, who's another screenwriter, a very famous screenwriter, kind of like Robert Townsend, to do cleanup on the script. He actually reworked the third act to kind of position itself into a very is it real, is it not type of dream scenario. Is it a real scenario, is it a dream scenario? So they kind of fixed those problems, kind of made it a more fast-paced action movie, take it away from pretty taken away from what, you know, Philip K. Dick's novel was dealing with. And we got, of course, Total Recall. Now, Total Recall has an amazing cast in it. We have, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's playing Douglas Quaid or Hauser, depending on, you know, how you want to look at this movie. We have Rachel Ticotin, who's playing Melina, who is the female that basically is a love interest slash action heroine in this movie. We have Sharon Stone, who plays Lori, and Lori, of course, is Douglas Quaid's wife, and depending on how you look at it, she could be a double agent, or she could be, you know, his wife in the real world. It just depends on how you view this movie. And of course, we have Michael Ironside as Richter, and he's one of the most deliciously bad guys in this movie. I love him. I think Michael Ironside is an amazing actor. And of course, we have Ronny Cox as Cohagen. Those are like your main actors in this movie. Cohagen is basically the leader of Mars. He is the one controlling the air. He's the one that controls Mars as almost like a dictatorship. He suppresses the people. He's basically a chief architect, and he's caused a lot of problems. And the amount they charge for air and stuff like that is a really big plot point in this movie. But it's a really fascinating story about people that are suppressing people and one man's ability to unsuppress by, you know, the whole idea of the Mars technology and the aliens and so on and so forth. But I put the Matrix clip at the beginning of this review for a reason. There's one thing I never realized until I was rewatching it just a few minutes ago before this review. There is a sequence where the guy from Recall, okay, he is the one that explained about how you go to Recall, get the implanted memories, so on and so forth. He shows up in the middle of this movie with the Sharon Stone Lori character, and he basically tells Douglas Quaid that he has been lobotomized, or he's going to be lobotomized because he's still at Recall, and that he needs to take this pill to basically help them recover and bring him back into reality. Well, of course, we know how things go. Douglas Quaid shoots and kills both of those characters and goes off. Well, he spits out a red pill. Now, I'm sitting here going, holy crap, that is clever. That is interesting, because if you watch that scene from The Matrix, and this brings up the whole Alice in Wonderland scenario, basically Neo takes the red pill, and the red pill is bringing you out of reality. But what I find so fascinating about that red pill is, if you go into like the Alice in Wonderland scenario that Morpheus is talking about with Neo, it's the ability for them to bring him back, his willingness to come back into reality, but he doesn't take it, so therefore he could possibly be in a dream. But then again, it could be, like I said, the red pill could just be a way for him to be, you know, put under psychosis or narcosis, or, you know, put under so that they can take him to Cohagen. So there's that idea and ideology. But, you know, what makes this movie so fascinating is when you look at stuff like that, when you look at how Lori and Harry look at him and how they react after he goes to Recall, even though they told him not to go there, and how he is watching stuff on Mars, and how it almost seems like a propaganda video to keep him pushing forward to trying to find Quado, which is the big pushing forward moment in this episode, or in this movie. Yeah, I mean, there are so many fantastical elements in this, with the fact of he basically goes to this place. He has had visions of this. He loves Mars. He wants to go there. He is put under to be a spy operative working in Mars to do this and that. The woman that he sees in the video feed is similar to Melina, to the idea of, you know, Richter and his guy Helm, who are going after him, to the eventual scene of Cohagen, who he sees at the beginning, who he knows about, to the idea of all these mutant technologies, because he's talking about alien technology that he sees. It makes a great argument for the over the outlandish characters, you know, the Quado and the mutant aliens and stuff like that, and the fact that there's so many ideas and logical points leading up to the dreams, and the fact that everything seems like a realistic dream of some sort, where, you know, everything is so saturated and fog-like and almost dreamlike in its scenario, especially when you're in Mars, and everything seems so wonderful and crazy and fantastical. It's really an impressive thing to do. It's one of those things where I would love this movie to be real, but it leads so heavily in the dream sequences and stuff like that. But it leads into like this scenario of, why does he dream about Melina at the very, very beginning of this movie? Was he at recall the whole time? From the very start of this movie, is everything from the start of this movie to the end of this movie just one complete dream sequence, one complete, spy mission sequence? Is adding in recall and adding in the chairs when they are both captured by Cohagen and stuff like that? Is that all part of the mystery and uniqueness to this movie? And I don't know. I mean, it's really a hard thing to talk about, because you want to believe that it could be a real thing, but it leans so forcefully into another perspective. Now, I've always been under the assumption of this movie of being a real scenario, not a dream scenario. And the reason for that is because this guy has a dream about Melina at the beginning of this movie. He has these two friends, Harry and, of course, Laurie. They both look at him suspiciously, like they know he is. I mean, you could look at it either other way, how he could be either crazy, or he could be in, the operative that they're trying to hide behind. Because the idea that one man who is trying to infiltrate this society is doing it under the guise of another person makes it kind of real for me, because it gives a more visceral, cohesive whole to a character that could be seen as outlandish and goofy and over the top and zealous. The way the guy, Dr. Eggmeyer, could have been used or paid by Cohagen to be kind of a character brought in to kind of push Quaid forward, because he's at a standstill, because he's like, not remembering who he is. I think it's interesting, the whole sweat portion, that he's sweating before he's killed. I think the idea that, something like this could happen, that Douglas Quaid has been kind of put in this situation that he can't remember, is all the more interesting, all the more fascinating into a real take. But the big thing that kind of leads me to the idea of this being real is we look at something like Recall. And Recall, of course, like I said, is the people that give you fake memories, fake vacations, so on and so forth. Yes, they give him the spy memory. Yes, they give him the 2-week vacation on Mars. Yes, they give him the attractive woman with Melina, as we see. Yes, there's alien architecture and artifacts and so on and so forth. But the funny thing is, outside of Cohagen and Laurie and Dr. Eggmeyer and Harry, where are all these other people coming from? Are you telling me that as part of the Recall initiative that they're implanting these characters into the movie? That they're implanting these characters? How exactly is it possible that they know this exact scenario? I mean, is Richter part of a program that they have? I mean, it's never really explained exactly how these memories work. So I find it very fascinating that when you sit there and think about it, the fact that this particular scenario, the particular situation, the fact that Cohagen is mixed into the group, I mean, do they implant? Is it so specific? Is it so like intuitive and so advanced that it's able to throw Cohagen in there as the bad guy? It's so able to throw Harry and Laurie in as there as the bad guy. It's able to give us Melina, who is the good woman. It's able to give us Tony, who's the Dean Norris character, which played Hank in Breaking Bad. Is it able to give us Benny? Is it able to give us all these characters? But it implants real life characters into the mix. How is it able to do that? Is it, like I said, is it that advanced that they can implant Cohagen and these people into the dream sequence itself, or the memory thing, whatever it is? So it brings up the simple fact of, that seems really kind of far-fetched if you think about it. It doesn't mean the people that think it's a dream sequence or dream scenario is wrong, because it's very alluding to that. But I find that as I was thinking about it, as I was watching it, when these characters pop up and when you see them, like, how is that physically possible? I mean, I don't know. Is it your memory just working overtime to kind of put the pieces together? Is it because it's such a fractured whole that he's living in this Matrix style reality? It's a really kind of unique, interesting perspective. You look at something like the Matrix, and why that is a dream state reality is because the people in that movie, in that scenario, are people that the machines have made up to kind of coerce the different people working together. So the managers and so on and so forth. So it's like a realistic reality in a fictional scenario. But here with Recall, it's a really kind of, you sit there and wonder, it's like, how are they able to do this? Does that mean I can go on a trip to Vegas or something like that and be enthralled into the 50s with, Bugsy and stuff like that, or in the Chicago area of the Prohibition and be involved with like Al Capone, or any of these characters? But it just seems like a very fascinating look when you think about it. I mean, like I said, you could put Richter and Benny and Tony and Quado into the scenario and have those people be in there. But when you have like Lori and Harry and Dr. Eggmeyer, I guess Dr. Eggmeyer is fine, but you have Cohagen, it's really kind of suspect, I guess you could say, and that's why it leads into the real, because these characters, I mean, how do they know about it? But I mean, like I said, it's never really explained, so it's never really given a lot of information. But there you go. I mean, that's my take and why I think it's real, and that's like the honest opinion. But the thing I found most fascinating about this movie and about what Paul Verhoeven says is, it doesn't matter how you look at this movie. You can believe this is real with everything really happening. You can believe this is fake with everything just becoming too fantastical, too down the looking glass, too Alice down the well. But either way is right. I mean, he is presented with Gary Goldman a very interesting kind of two-sided movie where they're both like reflecting off one another. So you have the realistic side, which everything could be happening. Douglas Quaid could be the Hauser who is on this mission to take down Quado, to working for Cohagen. Even Molina says, you're working for Cohagen, to him just being a lobotomized person who is living out this fantasy that he's never going to be able to get out of, because at the very end, maybe that's when he dies with the white light and stuff like that. You just don't know. And I just like the fact that, and that comment, I'll post the article in the description. It's a very fascinating thing to think about, because when you think of a movie, you think of it having a very specific, straightforward run through, and that's what this movie doesn't have. There are characters that could seem logical in this movie, like Richter or Cohagen. Cohagen's a real person apparently, because Quaid sees him on the TV. But it's really interesting to see that why it could lean more to the dream sequences, just because Cohagen is all of a sudden the bad guy that Quaid probably hates, and Richter and Helm, I don't know where they're coming from. That's why it could almost seem real in a lot of respects, because there's nobody in the movie that looks like Richter or Helm. And it's the same thing with, of course, Benny, who is the cab guy. I mean, you don't really see him anywhere. So like I said, if it's the implant scenario, that's the thing that becomes kind of almost focused into the real. But this movie is a fun thrill ride. It has a lot of great lines. Everything from "I'll see you at the party, Richter," to give these people air, to one of my favorite scenes where there's this operative who is giving Doug this case, and he goes to retrieve the case, but the old woman's got the case, and he tries to get the case from the old woman, and he eventually gets it, and succeeds. But the woman basically goes and tells him to go F himself, which is really, really funny. There's the "get your ass to Mars" stuff. There's the 2 week stuff. There's a lot of memorable lines in this movie, which is really fun and exciting and engaging, and really what makes it and sets itself apart from other movies in this genre. But this is definitely a Paul Verhoeven movie. It's very, very violent. It's very graphic. It has a lot of nudity. It's very sexual in its nature. The fact that these characters are very over the top and goofy in a lot of places. The fact that Mars has its own Venusville, which is his own strip joint, so on and so forth. The fact that there's alien technology on Mars and stuff like that. The fact that we have this over the top villain who is a very dictator like human being. It's everything Paul Verhoeven is known for. I mean, look at Starship Troopers. It's almost like the exact same nature of type of film. But I think it's an iconic film, because I think what Verhoeven and Schwarzenegger are doing, I think, when you look back and you watch it and you look at the vistas and you look at the landscapes and you look at the visual effects and you look at the gore, you look at the, some of the futuristic stuff that has actually become reality, with the TV wall, with the scanners that can see your bones and stuff like that, to the trains, the TVs on the trains, to just the overall look and feel, to the fact that we're trying to get to these planets and will eventually succeed, it is ahead of his time in what he's trying to do, and I'm sure that's a lot to do with Philip K. Dick and his novel. But yeah, you know, the visual effects in this movie are of its time, of the 90s. You know, you can tell this movie is on the cusp of, you know, visual effects like CGI visual effects. You can tell this is on the cusp of, like, you know, practical effects. You know, watching when they fall down the mountain of Mars and like their head starts like expanding because they have no oxygen, and like the radiation, and their eyes start bulging, and the most unrealistic thing, their necks to swallow. It's like, ah, you know, that type of thing. You know, the whole 2 weeks woman, her head that pops out and stuff like that. You know, that's a really cool effect. The cheesiest effect is when Arnold Schwarzenegger sticks this thing up his nose to pull out the little ball thing, and his head is obviously a fake, kind of like a Terminator. You know, it's just, you can just tell it's a real, not realistic looking thing. That's a really big animatronic. But yeah, you know, I think in essence, Total Recall is a movie that has a lot more to say than you realize. If you haven't seen this movie, I definitely recommend it. If you can't handle gore, I understand. I think when it comes to a very water coolish type piece of a film making and stuff like that, I think this is one of the best ones to talk about, because you can sit down and break each scene down and just kind of discuss whether you think this is really delving into the dream or really delving into the real. You know, each piece is kind of meticulously put together. It's kind of a almost like magic like style of filmmaking that doesn't really get done very much, and that's what makes it such a good movie and what makes it such a classic in the sci-fi genre, because it's taking high concept and actually doing something creative with it, which is not really seen before, or not really seen much, I guess you could say. But it's a really fascinating movie. It's a really fun movie. Like I said, it has a lot of great moments, you know, a lot of weird moments. The three-boobed woman, and of course Quado, who is basically coming out of the guy who's like the leader of this resistance group. The aliens themselves are very horrific looking, but you really feel sad for them. The nature of what's going on, the cars, is, you know, Robert Picardo plays the taxi cab Benny, or the taxi cab guy, like in the automated taxi cab guy, which is a lot of fun because there's a nice sequence in there where the Richter and Helm are chasing after him, and of course he's trying to get this taxi cab to move, but of course the taxi cab's automated, so it doesn't understand. So he like tears the automated taxi cab driver off, and then at the very end, when he drives to this location, he tells the cab thing to go F itself or whatever, and the cab like freaks out and like explodes, and that's how Richter and Abel are able to find him. But I also think the idea of like having air as a commodity, having air as a way of forcing like a dictatorship rule is really fascinating. I think, you know, just looking at this movie, just looking at the technology, just looking at everything about it, it's a fun movie. Like I said, most of you guys have seen it, most of you know about the plot, so that's why I really didn't delve into the plot very much. I think it's an over the top goofy affair, but it has a lot of great moments. And, you know, at the very end, when, you know, of course Schwarzenegger wins and he's able to put air into the atmosphere of Mars, which is a long-standing kind of idea that Mars once at some point had like breathable air and water and stuff like that. So it's an interesting concept to think that alien technology has the ability of all this ice underneath Mars, which is another idea about Mars and stuff like that. And all you have to do is press the thing down and it creates atmosphere into Mars. And, you know, Cohagen knows about this and he won't do it. So yeah, that's my take on, of course, Total Recall. Like I said, one of my favorite action movies of all time, one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time, and one of my favorite movies to kind of have a discussion about. So there you go. Let me know in the comments below what you believe about this movie. Let me know if you think it's real. Let me know if you think it's a dream. Let me know the reasons why. But otherwise, hit that subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. And if you like this video, hit the like. If you disliked it, hit the dislike as well as the other videos. And comment below on any video that you watched, including this one. But otherwise, see you guys on the next video. Peace out. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for checking out Movie Emporium. I really appreciate it. If you want to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button and the bell at the top. Find out what's coming next for Movie Emporium. Also, check out these 2 videos. They're amazing. I think they're awesome. I think you'll enjoy them too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.